Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of I Am Legion for Dying Light 1 and 2. My name is Jason, the creator of I Am Legion for Dying Light, and I want to announce this is the very special day for me. This is the 1 year anniversary since the start of the mod. Dying Light 1 I Am Legion, which is currently at a very light status. An overhaul is in the progress. But all my efforts lately have gone into Dying Light 2, as many of you are aware. And today is the 1 year anniversary of that work. It's been going really since the 6th. I definitely was trying to get this update out earlier. We're now into the 7th, but really I wanted to try to get you guys 1.3 as a way of celebrating this anniversary. Again, huge shout out. Thank you guys so much for the support of the mod. Thank you so much for all my Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for my Discord community and everyone else on the Nexus has come together and tried to give me feedback that's helped me with bug fixes, that has contributed to the new language translation. That's going to be a huge impact, I think, for a lot of the foreign communities. I know that with the inventory and trying to understand what these new items are, being able to actually read those will go a long way. So thank you guys again so much for all of your feedback and contributions to the mod and making this community, making this mod development enjoyable. I truly appreciate it. And I wanted to go ahead and just talk about what 1.3 offers and what that's going to bring to the world. So with this latest update, I've got some surprises for you guys. So to say thank you for being a member of the community and joining in to play I Am Legion on Dying Light 2, I have created a couple of new updates. So we do have some new Patreon content, but for the community, last time I released the Flamethrower, and that has now been set up to where that is on a timer. So after a delay, a cooldown, you'll be able to get another broken flamethrower. Sorry for those of you who missed out with your save games having that glitch where it was like you got it, but you didn't get it. Some of you broke the flamethrower or used up the ammo before you had a chance to upgrade it or repair it. So I've gone a long way to try to bring that flamethrower into the world by establishing. So we have some new factions that I'm going to talk about today, along with some new content. So we have the flamethrower in your stash, and now you should actually have the companions. So the companions have now been released into the world as well. They're still in beta status, alpha status. I mean, they need work, but essentially you'll be able to summon a companion to your location. They'll follow you, they'll fight for you, they'll climb, and they'll fall. So the biggest problem I've had with the companions so far is that they do have trouble on some of the buildings. Let me go ahead and spawn in my new favorite one, and he is available to everybody immediately through your stash. So if we go ahead and spawn him in, we can now enjoy the game with our trusty companion Kyle Crane and go enjoy the map and travel together. And there's still a lot of updates to go. I mean, we've come a long way, but I still have a lot left to do. 1.3 has been a big milestone, a big step for some of the development here with some of these ongoing research projects. With some of the code, I've discovered a lot through the last 1.1 to 1.2, but I'm not quite done. I did go ahead and release 1.2 before the companions were fully released, before the base building's been fully released, and I'm slowly starting to trickle that content into the world just because it drastically changes the way that the game is played. And so I'm still getting feedback from the community and learning more about that content as I'm making it, but I have several new features that I'm working on that I've discovered that are going to make 1.4 is going to be massive. 1.3 from 1.2 is massive, and it's going to continue to grow, especially with your guys' feedback and contributions. Again, thank you guys so much. So let's go ahead and show what our companions can do here. So I have not got them hooked up to where they can use gliders yet or anything like that. But what they can do is scale and climb the buildings appropriately. And so if you do summon a companion, do know that you can basically leave them behind by using some of the more basic things. So if you're gonna summon them, I wouldn't summon them this high up. Let's go ahead and see what he does. So if we go ahead and fly down here, let me see if I kind of look back up if he can figure out what to do. I've seen several cases where they have figured out a path. They'll, go jump around on the building, but there's also kind of a culling issue with the distance. And so what I'm trying to look into right now is potentially getting them parachutes so that they're able to move throughout the world as free as you are, or kind of a just teleport in general if you use your parachute. But for now, like I said, still ongoing. If you do reach that new destination and you want to bring him back, that's kind of the point is that as you collect these different summons, you land on the ground, you're back in your gameplay, you can summon them back in. And so I have two versions of these. A lot of you may have seen with the videos where I was using sound to kind of summon them. That's worked out well, but it's more of a maybe they'll show up, maybe they won't, based on proximity to the different parts of the spawn points in the world and that kind of thing. So I wanted to change that a little bit for this release. So for this release, there'll be a direct spawn. So if you throw the beacon on the ground, they'll immediately spawn in. And they'll be able to move around the world. So you can see here that he gets around pretty well, and he's going to come join you. I've tried to modify some of these distances to where this is still kind of being balanced in, but essentially this character will kind of hang out around you and continue to follow you. And if you're under attack, they'll start to understand, oh shit, you're under attack, and they'll help defend you. Now, they do have kind of an overdrive attitude right now where it's more of a focus on following you than anything else. And I'm still looking into the code to kind of deactivate that so that he's able to switch between kind of a defensive mode and an active mode. And that should make it a lot easier to go in and say like, okay, I'm ready to go fight. I no longer want you to focus on following me around the map. Pull out your weapon and start swinging, and we'll worry about running away later. But right now, that's still kind of a one step at a time. But I would say as a companion that they do a pretty good job. They're a lot of fun to watch in the world. And so let's get a couple more of the key players out here so you can see some of the other ones that I've added. He ended up right in that truck a little bit. Get Hakon out here. Get Spike. We got a second crane out here as well. We've got Frank. Barney is going to come join us. And where is she at? There she is. So Lon and Spike are currently the only archers. Everybody else is currently melee. And so the behavior of the Bowmen versus the one-handed can be a little different, and so I'm still trying to balance the Bowmen over the one-handeds. The one-handeds have an easier job of kind of understanding how to move around the world, while the Bowmen are a little bit more centered around trying to get high ground and stay away from the danger. And so that makes them a little bit harder to balance and also following you. And as you can see here, they'll go run far away to go get that overhead shot, and then they'll realize, wait, hang on, I need to get caught up. And so I'm still kind of balancing in specifically Bowmen, along with I have plans for other types of companions as well, potentially summoners, and when I'm working actively on getting the Flamethrower set up with these guys as well. So in the future we'll have gunmen, we'll have all sorts of different things down the road. But for now, just trying to get these basic guys working in the world and get your guys' feedback on, do you guys like these guys? Do you want to play with these guys in the future? How often is everybody actually using the companions, or do they kind of just get in the way? And so please give me your feedback. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'm really interested to see how often you guys are using these guys in the world, and what kind of storytelling elements you can kind of create for yourself while traveling the wasteland with your best favorite narrative characters. So you can see here we have quite the army, and as we move throughout the world, they'll continue to follow and move together as a team. And a lot of this code is written to where they'll understand each other as allies, and so they will come to each other's aid as well. And so it's essentially the same thing as starting kind of a PK patrol, and all that code is kind of applying over. So no, this makes for a lot of fun when you're clearing streets and kind of setting things up. But then once you start to climb, there are just some complications, and I think some of that has to do with the different nav meshes inside the world. So let's see if we try to take quite a few characters up these ramps here. Let's see what happens. I think they were under attack right there before I started climbing up. Ooh. Case of the disappearing zombie. Or the respawning zombie, rather. Interesting. Huh. It's a new one, actually. It's only when you're trying to record summary videos and stuff that you see all sorts of fun, interesting cases like that. But as you can see, they all do slowly get up here. So let's see who else we got down here. He was probably under attack. All right. So our posse made it up. I think we're missing a few of them, but the great thing here is that they'll continue to show up as you walk away. So right now they're in a comfortable distance, but they do, as you just saw there. That's a great example, is that you have a good chance of accidentally killing off your companions as you kind of climb up and travel around the world, especially if you're kind of lingering above a certain height, because they will eventually, find something to trip on, or, something inside the world that the nav mesh is not meant for them to be on it. And so that's kind of trial and error. And so, please, again, let me know your feedback. Let me know how it's going. But they're an interesting concept for sure. And we're going to see how far we can kind of take that idea and see if we can turn that into something more interesting. So your feedback is very appreciated. And I'm going to continue to work on that. So moving on. So let's talk about some of the other factions as well. So we have companions are in the world. We have a new icon system for some of the new spawnables. Let me head over to the PK base here and grab some gear. So I'm currently using the Ultimate Patreon account, so everything that you see here on the video will be directly from the Ultimate Patreon. If you don't see this in your stash, that's just because you're probably not a Patreon member. If you'd like to, you can find links on the video and also on the Nexus page, also on the Discord. So if you head over to, if you have the Patreon, then you should be used to seeing all these different icons. What I've tried to do is go in and actually set up some of these icons to make a little bit more sense and to kind of stand out and be a little bit more unique. And so for that, I've gone in and, for example, like with our spawn testing, if you get the spawn testing now, before they were kind of all one icon, but I have started to go through and try to clean these up and actually make these into their own unique items inside your inventory. If you have too much in your inventory, it will drop to the floor and you will have to pick those up. But let's talk about some of the upcoming projects and also some of the things that have now made it in. So in addition to that Patreon content, there's also an update, so you can now immediately summon PK Commandos along with the new factions, which I'll go over here in a little bit. And I believe actually the biggest thing is just these new factions. But we've got some surprises for the PK as well. So let's go ahead and head over to an open area. And for any of you that haven't seen the PK Commandos, we'll go ahead and grab them as well. So I wanted to find, let's talk about the first things first. Let's go back to the flamethrower really quick. So I wanted to find a unique way to bring the flamethrower into the world, and it's now one of my favorite ways to travel around the city and my favorite weapon to kind of take in to clear out interiors, and especially fighting at night. It's a lot of fun. And so I wanted to go ahead and kind of summarize how I'm bringing it into the world. So for each one of these things, the base building, the companions, I'm looking at ways that I can actually tie those to story elements, or actually make it more natural inside the world instead of just kind of tacked on. So for the flamethrower content, we now have a new faction. That faction is called the World Burners, and the World Burners are a pretty exciting group. So we have a new boss along with, so you actually have a boss World Burner, and then you have his minions. And so let's take a look at what they look like, especially if we can get them deployed down below, so we can kind of watch while I talk about them. So the idea is pretty simple. I'm trying to bring the flamethrowers in as their primary weapon. I was not able to in this current pass, so I'm still searching for ways to be able to set up those new weapons, including things like shotguns and that kind of thing. Those are not currently supported by the AI, and so So I've been learning more about the different ways that I can bring those weapons into the game, and currently those are not available, and so I was not able to get the flamethrowers in for this part of the update, but here hopefully soon I'll have the flamethrowers in as well. But for the World Burners, they are going to have some of the other items that are included in the World Burner content, which is the gas and fuel bomb. That one just decided to not spawn. And so what you should see is that we now have these darker clad gas suit armored enemies inside the world. And one of the cool things about them is that they are not susceptible to fire damage, and all they do is spit fire. And so as you see them move throughout the world, I actually probably should only do 3 to show the effect of what 3 can do. But essentially they have weapons, they have fuel bombs, and they will move throughout the world and essentially set the whole world on fire as they go. And some of their code is still, as you can see here, once they get spawned in like they are, they're not really able to establish their boundary very naturally. And so you can see, oh, come on. So you can see here that they're kind of having trouble setting up their play space there. But essentially, once they get going, they do exactly what their name encourages, which is they light everything on fire. So once they have those flamethrowers, I'm going to be super excited to see what they look like as they move throughout the world. But I think what the issue here is that I've been experimenting with their cooldowns, and so I think I turned their cooldowns up a little high there. But essentially, the idea is that as you're traveling through the world, you will encounter these guys in 2 specific parts of the map. Specifically, this faction will show up inside the main world, and you're looking at these outer perimeter zones where they'll show up most commonly. And so you should find them in random encounters. Please let me know if you're not seeing them inside the world. I've tried to do some basic testing. I've definitely seen them inside the world. I have not spotted the boss yet. So as you're traveling through the world, there's going to be 4 different variants of the World Burners as they're traveling. And so one of them includes the boss. And so if you're traveling and you happen to see one that is larger than the others, then that is the boss World Burner. And he is actually set up to where he contains the World Burner Flamethrower. So there is a legendary flamethrower called the World Burner, which is actually meant to crank out quite a lot of heat and rapid fire. And so as you're killing these guys or finding these guys in the world, they will contain fuel and they'll contain flamethrowers. So they should be who you're going to target if you're trying to find more content, specifically to the new Flame Burner or the World Burner content. Next, and last but not least, we have another faction joining the world as well. So this next one is called the Wolves, and you may recognize them when I spawn them in. I don't know why, but it would appear that you can't really spawn up here on this bridge. Let me jump down here. There we go. So Rise's men have made their appearance inside the city. We now have a unique faction that will be traveling around the city, and right now they're set up to where their parkour abilities are pretty high. They will chase you a good ways, and they are a pretty deadly combatant. I've tried to set them all up to be as lore friendly as possible, so they contain a lot of armor and yellow paint. And I was not able to get the ammo iconography from the first game. Sadly, they did not bring any of that over, and so I was not able to make them quite as faction specific as I was hoping. But I hope you guys do enjoy them. It took a little bit of work to refine them to the point that they're at. And so I hope you guys enjoy their new look and their intensity in the world. They do bring quite a challenge. So let's see, I'm actually going to have to get out of here before I die. So there's not currently a boss set up, but I do have plans for a boss for that faction as well. Stay tuned. I'm super excited to show you guys an additional add-on for the Wolves faction. So they're known as the Wolves, and you will encounter them in the similar zones that I mentioned for the World Burners. Basically, that's a little bit of a no man's land, and so as you're traveling in that area, expect to run into more of these guys. And last but not least, let's bring out the PK Commandos, in case you guys haven't seen those previously. So the PK Commandos are essentially PK that have darker uniforms. They are able to climb and jump better than the average PK, and they are much more deadly on the battlefield. They're meant to act as kind of the special forces unit of the PK, and the commanders, which is the one that just spawned in, can actually summon reinforcements. Now the reinforcements they can summon are actually for the PK, the regular PK, and so you will not find as many of them in the world, but when you do see the commandos, just know that they're worth keeping alive, and so the longer you keep the PK alive, the PK commandos alive, the better. So you can see that more and more of the wolves are starting to show up over here. They actually do a great job of kind of tracking down the enemy, and I really enjoy that aspect of them for now with their name, because they are able to track down their prey like wolves really well. I've given them some renegade loot for now. I'm working on some custom armor, but you'll get the standard renegade loot from them right now as well. Now let's go over to the PK. So for the standard PK, we have a surprise there as well. Some of you may have seen my YouTube videos over the last couple of days. It's taken some balancing and some research, but we now have a new class of PK soldier that you will see around the city, who has this giant shield. I do understand that it is very metallic right now. That's because they did not finish the textures for this shield. So the shield currently doesn't have any textures. This is deleted content or removed content, not added to the game. And so I hope you guys enjoy this. This is definitely one of my more favorite little hidden items in the game that when I stumbled upon it, I was like, no shit, they really did leave it in the game. So it got left in the game and, you know, pulled out, and that's a shame, because when I saw the photos, I was really excited about the tower shields. and seeing these guys move around the world. So I've buffed these guys out to where they have really solid defenses once they have their shield up. And so as they're moving around the world, these are the tanks that are going to be clearing the streets out. And you can see here, combined with the Commandos and other PK, they're actually probably going to do a pretty good job of clearing out this street. But they will work together to clear out the area and establish safe zones. Now, speaking of safe zones, again, maybe you guys have seen the video, but we also have another new entry into the PK as well, which is the PK Engineer, which are seen with these stripes. Basically, the idea here is that they will be rebuilding the city, and so they are going to be responsible for deploying UV lights. There's two tiers of them. The lower tier will deploy kind of weaker light systems, while the better tier engineers will deploy higher tier UV lights. There are now 5 new tiers of UV lights inside the world, and so this allows for a lot more diversity, and I'm also building towards bringing an entire kind of storyline around the engineers as they're building back the city and setting things up. So as you defend the engineers and work with them to move and clear out the streets, the idea is that in the day, they go down the street and start to clear it out. Later, when you come back to this area at night, that light will still be there. And so if you're working together with the PK to clear out streets and clear areas, you can actually come back and reap the rewards of that later in the evening. Now, this is also using some of the base building content, and so because of that, it does actually clear a street. So the more UV lights go into the world, the more it actually clears the area, and so they're not able to spawn. Currently, that is by play session only, so right now, if you go help out the PK engineers and clear a big part of the street, just know that that is only until the next play. And so as soon as you stop playing, all of these will be removed, and so you'll have to set them back up next time you play through. So that's meant to also that's what it is for now, but I'm continuing to look at my research and try to see if there's a way that we can get more persistent prefabs dropped in the world. I'm not super confident based on the things that I've seen so far, but I'm still researching, and this is meant to help show that as you begin to play, you are shaping the world and kind of changing things through your playthrough, and hopefully bases will be coming here very soon. So moving on to some of the additional add-ons. So from last time, some additional things that are brand new that I've worked on. So I am aware about the lowercase issue. I just spent a couple of hours trying to solve for this issue inside their menu system. This is not the mod's fault. This is actually something that's in the actual menu code itself. And so because of that, I'm having to basically rewrite some menu code, and I didn't find anything tonight. I have some leads, but I was not able to solve for that this evening. In the meantime, though, I was able to go over to the crafting menu and expand that, and so we do have a at least wider crafting menu. I'm actually not sure why we have some doubling here, but I will check that out. But basically, the idea is that I actually just learned this evening is that it's gonna supply every possible craft. And so as I'm adding custom crafting to the game, it's actually adding them to the list. I was not aware of that because the menu had been cut off for so long. And so now that I am aware of that, I'm going to work hard to try to keep this clean and less populated than it is. And I am going to figure out before releasing why exactly we're getting this doubling. I think I know why this is occurring, but I'll make sure that this is fixed before we have launch. And it does cut off reasonably here. It does not extend down like this. Additionally, let me go ahead and head back towards the stash really quickly, and we'll grab a few more things. Let me show you guys the UV lights and also talk about a little bit more of the gameplay. So there is still the PK aggression bug inside the game. I've spent several hours trying to look at and refine that bug. I'm still confused as to what's really happening there. I'm starting to feel like it's a vanilla bug that just only shows up very rarely in the vanilla code. That is somehow very much exacerbated by the amount of spawns and content inside the mod. When I've removed the mod all the way down, I can still get that to happen every now and then. And so I guess that's what I'm saying by it's taking a long time to kind of figure out what exactly is causing the PK aggression bug, but I am continuing to look into that and try to figure out a solution. So along with some of the updated companions and spawns, we also have some improved AI as well. So the Bowmen now respond more naturally inside the world, and they're less likely to stand and sit there and fire while standing still. So they will move and fight, which keeps them alive a little bit longer. So the Bowmen are notoriously murdered faster than anybody else in the game, and sending them up is working a little bit better, but just be aware that they will now move and fire a little bit more. So we're going to go ahead and summon my base building content, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So we have an upcoming release of a lighting overhaul. So part of what I've been looking at is trying to better understand how the bases can be deployed into the game, and along with that, trying to set up the idea of taking back the city. And so I have set up the ability to have 5 different tiers of UV lights, as I mentioned earlier. These UV lights come in varying degrees of performance, and so let me show you guys the difference here as we're going. So I actually ran out of space in this inventory. I apologize for the delay here. And we'll go ahead and switch to night so that way we can see the effect a little bit better. So now that the world is moving and crawling, it's much easier to have to defend rooftops. I found that the amount of volatiles that will just accidentally find me while I'm recording videos and discussing is actually pretty high. And so I wanted to try to create a few more options as far as UV protection. And so you can see here we now have 5 different lights, and let me get these deployed so you can see these before I get taken out here. So the biggest and largest is the tier 4 light, and that is based on kind of a military design of light. It uses this UV pole and looks very industrial. It's well planted, and in the future I'm continuing to look at trying to set these up to where these can be destroyed. For now, they are not destroyable, but hopefully here in the near future as a feature. Next is going to be the tier 3 light. So there are engineers who are able to place these. Some of you may have seen these lights before, but I went through and updated some of the visuals and got these set up to where the logic is working a lot better. So the shorter light is set up to where it is also set up, or I'm also working towards setting this up with health and actually making this a destroyable light to where you can kick out each one of these lights. It's a little bit of code. Nothing really exists like that that I've found yet, and so still learning more about how I can get that set up. And it looks like whatever was blocking those spawns earlier definitely turned off, because I see probably, oh no, I saw about 12 different world burners down there, so I don't think those were naturally spawned. I think that's where I was throwing down that spawner earlier, so let's go watch them a little bit more. So the idea is that I'm still working on crafting components, so that's the reason that I was fixing the crafting menu, is that I'm still trying to get that crafting menu set up to where it's a little less bulky. As I mentioned, right now obviously it's got the issue where there's the duplicates, but that will be fixed before this release, and with that comes the ability to actually find and create these lights. And so finding the components and then building the lights is kind of the idea. And so as you begin to travel around the world, you'll find more and more components, and it'll be easier and easier to build and set up these smaller lights. And so kind of the common thread that I would like to see in the future is kind of, as you're going through the city, you know, creating trails of smaller lights, so that you kind of understand where the safe paths are, and where you cannot go, while also setting up around your home, setting up like nicer lights for defending your beds, and also setting up in windows and doorways to kind of safeguard your home is also kind of a topic that I've been looking into. So being able to really go in here and set up a very basic light as well. And it looks like that audio glitch is still in here, where it's getting Aiden's voice from a volatile. No idea why that bug is in here, but so this is again what it'll look like when you have the world burners moving through the world. Clearly, you'll never see this many world burners as you go, just because, I don't know. I don't think you get very far, very long, but they're gonna be even more fun once we have flamethrowers on them. So if you go and set up these, each one of these lights, they're all set up to where they're going to stop the enemy zombies from spawning. And so the larger the light, the more area it covers for stopping the spread of the infected. And so as you start to take back the world, you can have this fun concept of actually going city by city, road by road, building by building, and actually reclaiming different territories and setting up your own safe zones. As I mentioned earlier, that concept of permanent fixtures is still not there, but I am working very hard on that, and I think I have a solution for some of that, but it's going to take time to set up, and I'm not promising anything just yet. So yeah, when I was throwing out those beacons earlier, it looks like something was blocking them earlier, and for whatever reason, those fixed themselves. So now the world's on fire. So that's the UV lights. Additionally, I've tried to go through and balance. So we've had a ton of feedback and bug fixes since 1.1. The change log is massive. I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping up this video. 40 minutes just talking about these things, so I do apologize for the length, but I did want to show you guys the new content and kind of hang out with you guys for a little bit so that you guys can leave me your feedback, leave me your comments, let me know what your experience is with the mod. I am trying to get a new cleaner version out today, and so this should come with a lot of bug fixes that should fix a lot of the crashes and issues with inventory that a lot of people have reported since the 1.9 update. So super excited to get your guys' feedback, super excited to hear what's in store for each one of your guys' gameplays, and I look forward to talking to each one of you. If you're not a member of the Discord community, please jump on and join. I always look forward to meeting new people there, and thank you again if you're a Patreon supporter, and thank you for your contributions. Thank you guys so much. Hope you have a good night.